The courtroom had the hush of a library before opening time. Paper whispering, shoes careful on tile, a faint stripe of sun across the judge's nameplate. Judge Caprio turned a page and lifted his eyes. She was already at the microphone. 23, immaculate blazer, pearl studs, phone balanced in her palm like a second pulse. The smile wasn't warm. It was practiced, polite enough to pass, cool enough to warn. Amelia Clarkson, the clerk announced. 3 parking violations downtown. Caprio's voice stayed conversational. Miss Clarkson, the citations say no parking zones and a loading lane. Do you accept the charges? She tilted her chin. Yes, my father will take care of it. He always does. A soft ripple moved through the benches. Someone cleared a throat. Someone else clicked a pen shut. Caprio set his pen down with care. He always pays. It's minor, she said, as if explaining weather. Not worth the drama. The small things, the judge replied, tend to be where the large things hide. Her smile thinned. With respect, Your Honor, I have larger things to worry about. He glanced at the file, then back at her. Do you know where the money goes when someone takes care of it? She blinked. To the city? To the habit, he said. The city just processes the receipt. Amelia shifted her weight, the light catching a watch that cost more than most transmissions. Behind her, a man in a driver's jacket sat very straight, eyes down. One citation, Caprio continued, was outside Children's Hospital. Fire lane. You recall that morning? I was late to a charity breakfast, she answered. There were no spaces. It was 60 seconds. 60 seconds, he said, is about what an ambulance needs to reach a door. Silence settled, dense as velvet. The judge didn't press. He let the number work. Amelia glanced at her phone, then tucked it away, perhaps for the first time noticing how loud it looked in her hand. I'm not here to embarrass you, Caprio said, gentler now. I'm here to ask whether the person paying your fines is also paying your attention. Her voice came back smaller, though she tried to keep the edge. I help with our foundation. I'm not careless. Charity begins, he said, when indifference ends. The driver in the second row looked up, worry written across his neat collar. The judge saw it and closed the file. Let's not rush, he said. This isn't about a ticket. It's about whether a lesson has anybody to land on. He folded his hands. Start again, Miss Clarkson. Not with who your father is. With who you are when no one is paying on your behalf. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Caprio didn't lift the fine schedule. He angled his chair a fraction, the way people do at kitchen tables when they want the story, not the defense. Miss Clarkson, what do your days look like when they don't end here? Amelia smoothed an invisible wrinkle on her sleeve. Classes. Then I stop by my father's office, Clarex Holdings. I sit in on calls, help with the foundation calendar. We host benefits, scholarships, real work. Do you draw a salary? She hesitated. An allowance. The accounts team handles logistics. Including tickets? Caprio asked, mild as tea. A beat. Our driver takes care of small items so I can focus on impact. Impact, he echoed, as if tasting the word. Tell me about the morning by Children's Hospital. Her chin lifted. The breakfast began at 8. The keynote was a pediatric oncologist. I was on the host committee. There were no spaces. She swallowed. I stopped where I could. In the fire lane. 60 seconds, she said, quieter now. I was dropping off auction items. The judge let the silence sprawl. The gallery seemed to lean in. Somewhere, a neon light buzzed and clicked off. He turned a page. Your foundation funds research. Good. It also funds a shuttle for parents who can't afford parking. Did you know that? She blinked. I approve the press release. Press releases are the way rich people whisper to themselves, Caprio said, without heat. I'm asking if you knew what it means at the curb. Amelia drew a breath. I knew in general. He nodded once. General is where we keep what we don't want to feel. Her posture softened a hair. My father built everything from nothing. He says excellence is just discipline with a suit on. I was raised to move, not stall. A small, strained smile. Even at red lights, I'm planning. And when someone else gets your red lights, who plans for that? Caprio asked. She didn't answer. The driver in the second row, Ricardo, watched the floor as if it might give him a script. Who paid the last 2 fines? The judge asked, gaze still on Amelia. Our office, she said. Not your father. Not you. Our driver submitted the forms, she admitted. Did he also write the apology? The words were soft, but they didn't miss. Color rose in her face. There was no apology. There was an ambulance delayed 3 minutes that morning. Caprio said, eyes steady. No tragedy. No headline. Just a nurse swearing under her breath and a mother counting breaths. Do you understand the arithmetic of 60 seconds now? Amelia's fingers tightened around the edge of the podium. I didn't know. That, Caprio replied, is the first honest sentence of most corrections. He closed the file again, gentler than before. You say you help your father. What would help him more, another gala photo, or a daughter who reads the curb as carefully as she reads a contract? Her voice thinned to almost nothing. He wants me to be strong. So do I, the judge said. Strength begins where convenience ends. The room settled into a listening quiet. Amelia's phone, face down now, buzzed once and stilled. She didn't reach for it. Let's keep going, Caprio said, the edge of sympathy in his tone. Not with titles and foundations. With the people who clean up our shortcuts. If we're going to talk about responsibility, they deserve a seat at this table. He glanced past her. Mr. Ricardo, would you stand, please? Ricardo rose slowly, every motion deliberate, as though he feared breaking the quiet that had settled over the courtroom. His cap trembled slightly in his hands. The fabric of his jacket was crisp but tired at the seams, the kind of neatness born not of vanity, but of respect. He stood there, a man who had spent a lifetime in the background, and for the first time, all eyes were on him. Caprio didn't raise his voice. Mr. Ricardo, you've worked for the Clarkson family for how long? 8 years, Your Honor. His accent carried the soft cadence of someone who had learned English while earning his living. Since Miss Amelia started high school. And in those 8 years, Caprio said, how many times have you paid her fines? Ricardo hesitated. His eyes flicked toward Amelia, searching her face for permission that never came. 5, maybe 6 times. Sometimes they come by mail. Sometimes a police officer delivers them directly to the house. Mr. Clarkson, he doesn't always see them. The murmur that swept through the gallery was low but unmistakable. People leaned forward slightly, the tension coiling tighter. Amelia turned sharply toward her driver. Ricardo, that's absurd. You had no right to do that. He didn't flinch. I wasn't trying to hide anything, Mississippi. I only wanted to spare your father the stress. He worries. About you. About everything. I thought if I could handle the small things. Small things. Her voice rose, brittle with embarrassment. You made me look irresponsible, like some spoiled child who can't even face her own mistakes. Ricardo's reply came softly, almost a whisper, yet it carried to every corner of the room. No, Mississippi. I made you look protected. The silence that followed was heavier than any rebuke. Caprio leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the desk. It seems, Ms. Clarkson, everyone around you pays, except you. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. Her composure, that polished, rehearsed calm, was cracking in plain sight. The judge continued, steady but never cruel. Mr. Ricardo, you said Mr. Clarkson doesn't always see these citations. Why not? Ricardo's eyes dropped to the floor. Because he's not well, sir. The doctors found something last year. His heart. He paused, choosing his words carefully. He still works, but it costs him more than it used to. A faint gasp escaped from someone in the back row. Amelia stiffened, her voice shaking. That's not true. My father's fine. He's busy. Ricardo swallowed. He didn't want you to worry. He said you already carry enough. But maybe he was wrong about that. Caprio's gaze softened but stayed fixed on Amelia. You didn't know about his condition? Her denial faltered. No, he never said anything. Maybe because, Caprio said quietly, every time he reached for your attention, it was already holding a phone. The line landed like a verdict of its own. Amelia blinked rapidly, a flush of confusion and shame flooding her face. You're saying it's my fault? That he's sick because of me? I'm saying, Caprio replied, that silence has symptoms too, and most families don't notice until it's terminal. For a moment, nobody breathed. Ricardo's shoulders seemed to shrink under the weight of his loyalty. Caprio broke the quiet again, voice low and deliberate. The morning you parked at that hospital, did you see the row of staff cars at the far end of the lot? Yes, she whispered. One of them was his, the judge said. He had an appointment there that same hour. With his cardiologist. Her lips parted slightly, but words failed her. A tremor ran through her hand as she steadied herself on the podium. He never told me. Caprio nodded once, not to scold, but to acknowledge the truth she was only beginning to face. He didn't need to. You drove past him that day. Her eyes widened. What? Ricardo stepped closer, his voice breaking. He saw you, Mississippi. From the waiting area. You were hurrying across the street. He told me later that he wanted to wave, but he said you looked too busy to notice. The words hollowed the room. Even the clerk, who'd been scribbling notes all morning, had stopped writing. Amelia pressed a hand to her forehead. He was there, and I didn't see him. No, Caprio said gently. You didn't look. Her shoulders sagged, the first hint of tears brightening her eyes. You make it sound like I'm heartless. He shook his head. No, just blind in a way most of us are until something breaks. Ricardo's voice came again, soft but firm. He never blamed you. He said you were finding your own way. He was proud of that. Proud? She repeated, almost incredulous. Of what? Of you being unstoppable, Ricardo said. He just wished you'd stop long enough to see him. Amelia's breath shuddered. And now you're all judging me. You, this court. Caprio raised a hand, stopping her before the anger could take root. No one here is judging you, Miss Clarkson. I'm asking you to listen. Because this, he gestured around the room, isn't punishment. It's perspective. The judge leaned back, his voice lowering to something like a prayer. You see, law isn't only about guilt. Sometimes it's about pause. The pause that lets us see who's been holding us upright all along. The words lingered, filling the space like a slow tide. Amelia didn't answer. She simply stood there, silent, the sound of her own breathing suddenly louder than anything else in the room. Finally, she whispered, So what happens now? Caprio met her gaze. Now, Miss Clarkson, you stop running. Because running, he said, is just another way to stay lost. He didn't strike the gavel. He didn't need to. The truth had already fallen. Heavy, irreversible, and far louder than wood on wood. Ms. Clarkson, Caprio began quietly, his voice calm but unyielding. Did you know someone has been paying for your mistakes? Amelia hesitated, her tone almost defensive. I thought it was my father. You never checked? Her chin lifted slightly. No, they're just fines. The judge's next words were slower, heavier. No, Miss Clarkson. They're not just fines. They're a reflection of your life. Someone always cleans up after you while you keep smiling. She flinched at the precision of it. The air in the room thickened. Caprio leaned forward, folding his hands. Do you know how much Mr. Ricardo earns in a year? She frowned. No, I don't ask about that sort of thing. He nodded once, like a teacher confirming the lesson's start. Less than what your handbag costs. Yet he paid your debts. Amelia froze. For the first time, she didn't know where to put her hands. The weight of his words settled on her like a truth she didn't want to touch. Her voice trembled. Ricardo, why would you do that? The driver's answer came softly, without pride or self-pity. Because I thought, someday, you'd understand. Understand what? That respect isn't about wealth. It's about noticing the people who stand behind you. Amelia looked away, her eyes fixed on the polished wood of the judge's bench. The reflection staring back at her didn't look like a confident young woman anymore, just a person stripped of pretense. Caprio's tone gentled, though it carried an edge of finality. Do you know what makes this moment important, Miss Clarkson? She shook her head. He said it quietly, but every word landed with weight. Because today, for the first time, you can't buy your way out of it. You can only feel it. The silence that followed was unlike any other. Not awkward, not tense, but raw. Even the hum of the air conditioner seemed to fade. Ricardo lowered his eyes, as if the truth itself were too bright to look at. Amelia's voice broke. You should have told me. I could have. No, miss. Ricardo interrupted gently. If I told you, you might have been angry. Maybe even fired me. And I didn't want that. I wanted you to see it on your own. Her eyes glistened. You shouldn't have had to fix what I broke. Ricardo smiled faintly. Then stop breaking things that don't belong to you. Like people's patience. A small, almost sad laugh escaped the judge. He's not wrong. Amelia wiped a tear quickly, embarrassed. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Caprio leaned forward again, his tone softening. That's the problem with carelessness. It never means to hurt anyone. It just does. The room stayed still. Nobody moved, nobody whispered. Even those waiting for their own cases were caught in the gravity of the moment. The judge's voice came low but resonant. You've been living in a world padded by good intentions and quiet sacrifices. But those cushions don't last forever. Sooner or later, you have to feel the floor beneath you. Amelia looked up, meeting his eyes. And what happens then? Caprio didn't hesitate. Then you decide who you are without the excuses. He paused, let the words settle, then added the sentence that closed the moment like the slow pull of a curtain. And it seems, Ms. Clarkson, that day has finally come. The gavel stayed still. It didn't need to fall. The sound that filled the room instead was quieter, truer. The sound of a young woman realizing, for the first time, that privilege could no longer protect her from herself. Caprio adjusted his glasses and looked from Amelia to Ricardo, then back again. His tone was calm, but the authority in it filled the room. Ms. Clarkson, he said, I could fine you $400 and move to the next case. But it wouldn't change a thing. Money can't buy accountability. And there are debts you can't pay in cash. Amelia stood motionless, her eyes red but dry. Then what do you want me to do? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned to Ricardo. Mr. Ricardo, how much have you paid for her tickets in total? Ricardo hesitated. Around $600, Your Honor. And you don't want that money back? The driver shook his head quickly. No, sir. I never did it for money. Caprio gave a small nod. I believe you. He turned back to Amelia. Then here's what I propose. No, what I require. Her shoulders tensed. You, Miss Clarkson, will pay $600 to the Children's Relief Fund. You'll do it in person, under your own name. Not your father's, not your company's. No cameras, no social media, no press. Just you. She blinked, uncertain whether to argue. And after that, he said, you'll come back here and tell me what you felt. Not as the daughter of a CEO, but as a woman who finally paid something herself. There was no sarcasm in his voice, no anger, just a quiet challenge, the kind that couldn't be ignored. Amelia's reply came after a long pause. Yes, Your Honor. Ricardo looked down at his hands, relief and pride flickering across his tired face. Caprio continued, his tone softening. You see, Miss Clarkson, this court doesn't celebrate punishment. It celebrates awakening. The moment when a person stops defending their comfort and starts listening to their conscience. Her voice was almost a whisper. And what if I fail? Then you'll try again, Caprio said. Because failure only matters to those who stop showing up. He closed the file and set his pen aside. The movement was slow, deliberate. A small ritual that meant the conversation had reached its end. You'll make that donation within 7 days. And remember, he added, this isn't charity. It's repayment. To a man who believed in you enough to take your blame, and to a world that deserves to see you earn your own respect. Amelia nodded silently. Caprio's final words came softly, almost like a benediction. Court is not a place for humiliation, Miss Clarkson. It's a mirror. And today, for the first time, you looked into it. She didn't move for several seconds, as though afraid that walking away might break the fragile clarity she'd just found. As she turned toward the door, Ricardo gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod. Not forgiveness, acknowledgement. A quiet passing of responsibility. For the first time that morning, Amelia didn't reach for her phone. She simply walked out, alone, and finally aware of the weight her own name carried. Several weeks later, the morning light slanted through the courthouse windows just as it had that first day. The same wooden benches, the same quiet rustle of papers. But this time, Amelia Clarkson walked indifferently. No designer coat, no phone in hand. Her hair was tied back simply, her steps slower, deliberate. She looked smaller somehow, yet more grounded. Caprio glanced up as she approached. Ms. Clarkson, he said, with the faintest trace of a smile. You came back. Yes, Your Honor, she replied, her voice steady but gentle. I made the donation. $600 to the Children's Relief Fund. But I also stayed. I spent the day there, she said, eyes lowering. They showed me the ward for terminally ill kids. I helped hand out meals, played a board game with a girl named Ava. She's 9. She told me she wants to be a doctor because she likes fixing people. When I left, she gave me a drawing she made of me and her. Her hand trembled slightly as she pulled a folded piece of paper from her bag. She placed it on the judge's desk. 2 stick figures, both smiling under a sky full of hearts. Caprio studied it silently. I realized, she continued, $600 doesn't fix anything. But when you give your time, your attention, it's different. It's not money that changes things, it's presence. Caprio nodded. Presence. That's something your father, I imagine, has been hoping to see from you for years. Her lips curved in a sad smile. I called him that night. I told him about the girl. He didn't say much. Just, I'm proud of you, kid. That was enough. For a long moment, neither spoke. The courtroom, normally filled with the rhythm of small cases and quick verdicts, felt almost sacred in its stillness. Caprio finally broke the silence. You see, Miss Clarkson, I never wanted your apology. I wanted your awareness. Money can settle a bill, but only humility settles a life. She met his eyes. I understand that now. And what did you do with that understanding? I asked my father to let me start a program under our company to fund healthcare access for children of our employees. We're calling it Ricardo's Grant. He tried to talk me out of naming it after our driver, but I told him it wasn't negotiable. The corners of Caprio's mouth lifted in quiet satisfaction. That's a good name. It's the least I could do. He believed in me when I didn't deserve it. Caprio leaned back, his tone soft but resolute. Miss Clarkson, I don't measure people by their mistakes. I measure them by what they build afterward. And from where I'm sitting, you started building. Her eyes glistened, but her smile didn't waver. Thank you, Your Honor. He closed her file, then tapped it lightly. One more thing, he said. Your father didn't send Ricardo to pay those fines. Ricardo did that himself. But when I called your father after the hearing, he said something I'll never forget. She looked up. What did he say? That maybe this was the first time the world didn't protect you. And that's how he knew you'd finally grow. The words hung in the air, quiet but powerful. Amelia exhaled, half a laugh, half a sigh. He was right. I'm not sure I like growing up, but I think I like who I'm becoming. Caprio smiled faintly. That's the only verdict that matters. He reached for his gavel but stopped short, letting the silence carry the weight of closure. Amelia gathered her bag, then paused at the door. Your Honor. Yes. Thank you. Not for the sentence. For the mirror. Caprio gave a slow nod. Mirrors don't change us, Miss Clarkson. They just show what's been waiting to be seen. She left quietly, sunlight following her into the hallway. Not dramatic, not triumphant, but real. And for a brief moment, even the old courtroom seemed lighter, as though justice itself had exhaled.